Okay, I'm live. That was complicated. Nobody's here anyway. Stop that. Restart it. Open the Zoom room. Just in case anyone shows up here. Record it.
Recording in progress.
Let's see if it's still working over on YouTube. Well, there's nobody here anyway. What's going on with that? Last time I did this, I didn't even announce it. In other words, people, maybe everybody's died, and there's only just a very small handful of humans left. And the news hasn't broken because there aren't enough people to break the news. So then I would expect my internet would have gone down. So speaking of internet down, there really are nobody watching now. That's quite eerie. That's how I would have expected it to be if I hadn't had prior experiences of YouTube being busy, my channel. But yeah, speaking of internet going down, the connection might not be very good because my wife is streaming, zooming in the other room. This internet connection isn't very good anyway. It's certainly, well, it's adequate, but that's about all we can say for it. And I noticed that the last YouTube video I did was pretty shite in terms of the dropped sound and dropped image and etc. So one more reason not to do this on YouTube. I'm doing it on YouTube now. I always have an excuse. Well, because I thought it would inspire me to have a few audience members and the participants, I should say. There's in the Zoom, the daily Zoom thing I've been doing and actually not doing because I forgot to do it several days running, and was busy. The one or two people have been showing up at most, and it's a little tricky to get in the flow walking, aren't I? Your connection is unstable. Yes, I predicted that. Well, the fact is, there's only one person here. It really, well, it really doesn't seem to be a great deal of impetus to do this. But anyway, I'm doing my 20-minute thing, and I'm just combining it with YouTube again. And what I was thinking about was, as bad as this connection is, and maybe as choppy as the image and the sound that you're getting may be, if you think about two things, how it was, just 50 years ago, 100 years ago, the beginning days of radio, which started as one-to-one rather than one-to-many. It was pretty primitive, but it was well, back in the day, when it was new technology, it was revolutionary, and literally, I mean, it did revolutionize society. And of course, we didn't have anything to compare it to, so it was just all good, really, or at least all new, and new opportunities. Actually, we are able to communicate over long distances. Would have been the feeling that was the basic miracle of it, and the potential of it was right there. And now, of course, we are spoiled rotten. Some of us born into this tech, which has sinister implications and should. And so we complain and lament and really feel like we're deprived if it's a crappy image, a crappy signal, or slow streaming. I mean, I watch YouTube trailers. Sometimes I have to wait for them to load because this is slow internet here. And well, it's annoying. But just 20 years ago, there was no such thing as trailers on YouTube. I'd have had to go to the movie theatre or rent a VH or DVD to get them. Not that I ever watched them on DVDs. So the point, and the second point, is this is how it will be soon also. Though this technology is not going to be available for much longer, in my view, unless we take the mark of the beast. And if we don't, then we either just don't have access, or we just have to fall back on some crappier versions of the same. Probably lightly some or streaming time might be worse. Then just be thankful that we can be in contact at all. And that's the point of me doing this, is to make contact one more time while there is time. Of course, there is time. Time is still clicking by. The seconds are rolling, but they're rolling towards, well, I don't really want to call the eschaton, because that's a fancy word that was coined by kind of social engineering, cultural engineering, propaganda programs. At the end of time, don't know about that either. If time ends, what's left? Eternity. Well, we're already in eternity anyway. So time is a matriculated illusion. It's a linear time frame that we've been shoehorned into, like Procrustes in his bed, chopping the feet off the guests who are too tall to fit in it. We have allowed ourselves to be like women having their feet bound in old Chinese culture. We've allowed ourselves to be disfigured and deformed in order to fit our consciousness into linear Saturnian chronological time. And we're now seeing the culmination of that in terms of everything is sound bites, everything is mediated, everything is numbered, everything is counted and measured. And so we are counting down. I mean, we always were, because if time begins, it has to end. Everything has a beginning, has an ending, to quote a bad Matrix sequel, although there's worse to come. And the reason I'm saying all this is that, well, or what I didn't finish, the point I didn't finish rather, is that whether or not time is going to end, the human species has currently configured, has a sell-by date. And Satan, he's hungry and he's going to eat everything, because it's all going to waste anyway otherwise. He'd rather gorge himself and be nauseous for the next few millennia than let any soul go to waste. So yeah, Satan's going to get busy, and he's going to use all the idle hands he can to assist him with his great harvest. And that has to do with human bodies and tech. As you know, if you've watched my channel at all, or as you've heard, perhaps I should say, that bodies are being reconfigured through various means, the most currently notorious of which being a gene serum, spike protein implant, foreign installation thing, branded as a vaccine, to reconfigure the nervous system, and thereby, by knock-on effect, the energetic body, to disrupt the signals and the connections in the energy body, and therefore prevent consciousness from dwelling in the body completely. That's the end game, folks, and you're in it. And that's why I do this kind of thing, because, well, I mean, what else are you going to do if that's true? For consciousness, not really evolutionary. Yes, we are programmable. We have been turned into programmable machines. That's another way of putting it, because the human body is not a machine. It can't actually be turned into a machine, but it can be used as a flesh matrix for machines to move through and as and incarnate. Anyway, yeah, the evolutionary curve is not evolutionary. It has to do with rites of passage, essentially. It's an initiatory curve. If you're willing to come from YouTube to Zoom, then, well, that's a big step. I haven't put the link in because I'm only going to do this for 20 minutes. But I will put the link in if somebody reminds me anyway before this ends, because this is to announce once again the daily meetings, which I will keep up if people start showing up on Zoom. And they're currently not just monologues but dialogues. Like if somebody shows up and they want to dialogue, then that is definitely possible, as long as you're not off your head on drugs. It is open to anyone. Sobriety rules, but if you want to interact with me, then I do have a sobriety rule. Anyway, I didn't finish what I was saying. There's so much to say. It's hard to finish each sentence before grabbing the next one that's coming in. And that's also what I wanted to talk about: becoming an instrument of existence, divine consciousness, and the alignment transmission. That's where it's at. It's the only game in town, folks. But finishing the point, the initiatory steps, yeah, from YouTube to Zoom passively, then from passive Zoom to active engagement via one of the, well, it would have to be the Saturday affinity group probably, or the men's group, because the others really are contingent on participating in Dave events. Next step, participate in the Dave event, even if it's a free event. Then you're eligible for the affinity groups, provided you observe the sobriety rule 48 hours before and during. And then you're part of the field, or at least you become conscious of being part of the field, because if you made it that far, possibly you already were. And then I can start talking to you about getting your ass to Galicia, or the local equivalent in your area, because of course I'm not claiming that Spain is the only place that it's safe to be in the end times. I don't even know that it will be safe to be here, but it's where I am and where I'm encouraging others to come, and will even facilitate those who do take those steps, if I can, by providing land and things of that kind, because this is how serious I am, and this is how serious it is now, folks. This isn't merely about the end of the species. It's something worse than that, potentially. It's something worse because it involves the indefinite prolongation of a imprisoned consciousness in a artificial matrix of organic technological hybrid symbiosis, in which the souls can't incarnate in the bodies, and the bodies become tools of the machines, but the conscious souls, or the conscious life force, can be to some degree harvested and trapped, because it's prevented from incarnating. It can't just go back to the source, and if those bodies don't die, it's not released. You get where I'm coming from? And those bodies might be able to be kept alive indefinitely once they're spliced with machine materials. I mean, talk about immortality. That's it. That's the only way we're going to have anything approximating immortality, is by entering into an indefinite bardo realm of machine-generated hell, in which our consciousness is experiencing forms of suffering that we don't even have words for, to quote David Shana. No, to answer that question, I'm not an Orthodox Christian. I am as Christian as I can be. And that's not up to me to determine on the calibrator of Christliness or Christianity. I'll let others judge, and I won't believe them either. And Christ himself comes and says, "You have done well, Brother Pedro," then I'll take it from the man. But otherwise, how do I know if I'm Christian or not? Really, I might be the Antichrist and not even know it. That's how far we are from really knowing up from down or day from night. But I do my best, and my best gets better as things go along, and that brings me to the point I said I would raise also, which is about becoming an instrument of the divine without, talking about it too much. I'm not, one can't make real claims to that, but one can. There's no doubt the devil makes work for idle hands, and that the only antidote to that is to engage in God's work, to make oneself available as an instrument of the divine. Somehow one building a house for my cat, not because God wants to have a house, although that's possible, but because when I engage in carpentry and work, I'm in my body, I'm using my hands, I'm working with matter, I'm learning more about the law of matter, which is the law of Satan, which is the ruler of this world. And if you want to get out, you've got to go in. So that's how I become a divine instrument. In this way, is engaging directly with the satanic forces, including those that are essentially benign, which is nature. Nature isn't satanic, but I mean it is matter, and matter is Satan's realm, and his domain, his dominion. Satan has dominion over the body. That's why we die. That's why we get sick. And if you're a Steiner, then follower, and just supplant Satan for Ahriman, but not Lucifer. So becoming an instrument of the divine in order to take one's hands out of the devil's employ and take one's soul out of the devil's clutches, or at least stop being complicit with that which keeps us ensnared, so that these hands can then become instruments of the Lord, which is not something we can consciously do, except, as I say, by using them in ways that are meaningful, right? Not fiddling and diddling on Twitter and Facebook, and watching porn and pulling your plonker and drinking, smoking, eating junk food, countless different things that you could make a list of if you wanted to, of your own most beloved childish things. Checking the time, it's been 18 minutes. I did start a bit slow because there wasn't anyone here. So that's been my experience lately. Currently, that's why I'm doing this presentation today. Hopefully, as I said at the start, the reception isn't too crap. But although you won't have a decent video of this, there will be a clear audio, because I'm recording it separately in Audacity, of everything I've said today, available at my website. Most of the JahO daily meetings, 20 minutes a day, if and when I remember, are behind the pale play wall. So that means participation and or contribution, or both. There are paid events that you can sign up for, although not currently, or there are free events, and or you can just make a donation. But that's the pale play wall in a nutshell. Either you're actively engaged and collaborating with what I'm doing, and you have access to that material, or you're supporting it financially, which is, well, I would say less supportive, but I won't say no to a buck, even though I think it won't be worth much. Pretty soon that money will go into land, which will go to help others extricate themselves from machine hell world 2.0 2021, coming on to 2022. So take a breath. I can only say that I feel like every day I hit the ground running. Every moment I'm dropping and hitting the ground at a new level, a new depth of ground, and running with it. That as I continue to go deeper into the body and into engagement with physical matter, nature, and human evil tech that we're using now, the more this comes through me, what's coming through me to whatever degree now. The enlightenment transmission is Dave's brand. It's not my brand, but I don't have another or a better name for it. I don't have a better one anyway. The signal, the Holy Spirit, if you're Christian, or even if you're not. This isn't something that's the jurisdiction of, well, it isn't, I'm going to say the opposite of what I was started to say. It isn't the jurisdiction of everyone. Not everyone can become host to that thing, because we need to actually clear out space and toxins in the body at the very least. But it goes back to our conception and our gestation, everything, the way our body was configured even before we started allowing ourselves to be infiltrated by big pharma, evil military industrial tech. but it's certainly not just Jesus Christ and Buddha. It's not something you have to worry about being a heretic for considering that you might be able to be an embodiment of Eden, of the Garden of Eden, and so facilitate the great exodus out of Egypt and into the wilderness to return to the promised land again. That's something that if you don't do it, then maybe nobody will do it, because we don't really know if anybody's doing it for sure. So, but somebody has to do it. At least a man and a woman have to get there, whole and healthy and still fertile. Otherwise, it is the end, folks. And if God moves to another race, another iteration of the human race, well, then at least there's a new divine army to liberate all those trapped souls in the hell machine world, who would otherwise be there for perhaps billions and billions of years. So think big, people, without getting deranged. Think that as big and as terrible as the situation that you're staring at now, if you're watching the news too much or listening to your friends and relatives spouting propaganda in every orifice they can access, then the solution, the opportunity and the resource that is going to be conjured forth from within you, if you connect to that divine spark, is equally great. So by our fruit will we be known, and our fruit will be given unto us or delivered through us as trees of life in the Garden of Eden, having vomited up the tree of knowledge of good and evil. How do I finish that sentence? By fruit shall you know them. Oh yeah, the more hungry souls that you find, the more luscious and ripe and fruit that you will be able to deliver will become. Right. Okay, so that's it. That's been 23 minutes. I went over the time. I said I'd put the link in. So I must do that now. It means I have to find the damn thing. So if you just hold on for 1 second, this is especially for YouTube people. Let's see, because you can find my link quite easy if you just sign up at Landmade Man. Yeah. Okay, so it's just after that. Switch new content. To Landmade, there it is. Okay, so here's the link coming up with a bit of information. Put it in the chat. Whoops, it's the wrong browser. Libera tu temet ex inferus. I don't know what that means. Did that go through? Oh, it's too big. What the hell, YouTube? They just want to control everything. Let's focus. Can you believe that? I'm actually not allowed to say more than 200 words per characters. Okay, that's part 1. That's part 2. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, and you are interested enough in what I'm doing on YouTube, then come over to Landmade Man and register, and that way I can see you and know you and connect to you personally. Okay, I'm off.